Another Sunday, another case of the Scaries to start your work week. Welcome to the newest edition of the Sunday Scaries, where we have all your gore, lore, and more, covering all the latest horror happenings, slicing open all the latest horror news, and dissecting it bit by bit, finding all those juicy innards. Pour that cup of coffee and turn on your fright lights while we take you on a tour of terror. And still going strong with a lot of the reviews on the channel. Just checked out The Boogeyman. We were both pretty positive of that one. Didn't know what to expect going into it, but I think we got a treat.
Yeah, it seems like most of the big channels, big outlets were all Spider-Verse last night, and a couple of Boogeymen watchers here and there. But now it seems like as we're getting into Friday afternoon, as of recording this, people have gone out and seen it. And yeah, it seems to be very positive. A lot of people seem to be on our side about it. I know as of recording, our buddy Evan has yet to post his review from Rockland Graves there, but I did see his short and he also really enjoyed it. So I think that's going to be pretty much the consensus across the board.
I was going to mention Evan as well. I did check out his little short. It looked like the theater started off pretty empty, but I don't know how many people were there, but I know he was had some disdain for people in the theater, as we did
Yeah.
during the actual viewing of it. A lesson to everyone: always be quiet in the theater, please.
Yes.
But we got through it pretty positive. And then we also have on the channel, we got to check out a screener for Hollywood Dreams and Nightmares, the Robert Englund story, which was really, really fun.
Yeah, no, I definitely enjoyed that doc. I'm excited for everybody to get a chance to see it on June 6th, coming again very graciously from the folks over at Screenbox, who, by the time we have posted this, just celebrated their 1-year anniversary yesterday. So definitely going to have to do some posts on social media and some things for tomorrow. Just in celebration for those guys. They've been very good to the channel. If you've been watching us for a long time, you know that. But yeah, no, they really did a great job acquiring this doc. I thought that the pairing did a great job of Gary and Chris. They always do really good work. I mean, their other docs speak for themselves, but this one just really going in deep on just one central character, going through his entire career and the trials and tribulations that went on with it. Excellent stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Screenbox is easily your place to go for a lot of these horror documentaries now. It's as Dylan likes to say, if you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Because there's just so much great stuff on there. Just not just horror documentaries, but they have a lot of great stuff, original content as well. You just can't get enough. It's a bargain for everything.
They're killing it.
Yeah.
They really are. I mean, I used to really love Shudder. I still do, but I mean, it's one of those things where it's just like Screenbox just has announcement after announcement after announcement. It's like I hear something from Shudder every once in a while. So, it's just one of those things where they are really on the pulse of the horror culture and keeping it relevant.
I don't think horror fans can't go wrong with any horror streaming services. So, hey, let the competition begin because, hey, we're reaping all the rewards and I can't be happier.
We are for sure. But why don't we hop into some of the news here, Luke? Speaking of Robert Englund and speaking of Screenbox, in promotion of the upcoming doc, they did at Variety speak with Robert Englund himself. Yes, the man, the myth, the legend, Freddy Krueger. Just going over, obviously the doc, his career a little bit, just overall, just talking about, what the process was like making it. And of course, the question had to be brought up of would he like to return to the character of Freddy Krueger? And if you go up to the top here and you read this, you can say, no, he will not be playing Freddy anymore. And for good reason. I mean, the guy, he's, wonderful actor, great actor, but when it comes down to playing something like Freddy, who is such a physical character, he just can't push himself to do those stunts anymore. And that's really what it comes down to. His main quote here is, would he be willing to put on the fedora again for the right script? I'm too old and thick to play Freddy now, Englund says. I just can't do fight scenes for more than a couple of takes. I got a bad neck, a bad back, and arthritis in my right wrist. So I have to hang it up, but I would love to cameo. And that is beyond, honorable and gracious. And honestly, again, really in line with the man we know as Robert Englund. Just very honest, very true to himself, and knows that, although he loves the character and he would love to do it again, it's time to hang up the glove.
And looking at this, as we covered, a couple weeks ago about Sigourney Weaver saying she's not going to be Ellen Ripley any longer. And, a lot of people say, I'm not returning to these iconic roles just because age is a factor and everything, and I totally get it. Do I necessarily 100% believe that we won't see him at least one more time? It's a little hard for me to believe that. I mean, it's just one of those things where you put it on the table, someone comes to Robert Englund to say, we just want you one last time. I think from my perspective, it's a little easy to pull off. He doesn't have to really necessarily do a lot of the physical things because of the makeup effects. It's really easy, especially when you're not getting a straight on face shot of him, to do any physical things. And Freddy is a character that can really get by without really doing it. It's like you look at Freddy's Dead, for better or worse, where he's playing the video game and controlling someone. There are a lot of things like that. In New Nightmare, where he's dragging the babysitter, across the wall, where really nothing's happening, nothing overly physical. It's really him delivering those one-liners. So I think there is a way to do it. As we talk now, Harrison Ford's gonna be Indiana Jones once again, and he's 80 years old. Robert Englund. We have Robert Englund Day coming up on his birthday. He will be 76. So, do I think if they put together some sort of property here in the next couple of years to kind of say, we want, your swan song, this is the official one, I could easily see that happening. I'm not going to hold out hope, but, I think maybe, just maybe, we'll see him one more time.
Yeah, I mean, they have mentioned, I think it was Mike from We Watched the Movie. I watched one of his videos this week where he talked about it, where the idea is floated around of him possibly, getting the offer to pass the torch in some way. But it would be kind of weird. They'd have to do kind of maybe a half and half thing where it's like kind of in certain dream element scenes, you could have his voice, and in other element scenes you have like maybe a different body. I would always say that a body snatching element to Freddy Krueger is totally possible. They very much did it in Nightmare 2, and I've always thought that was cool, and they could always go back to that, which could give you a reason to give him a different look, and kind of really replace it. But overall, one of the biggest things that we could take away from this article and their conversation was that he said that who he'd like to see pick up the torch and go forward, as he said a few times now, is Kevin Bacon himself. I know there was a debate I got in with a couple people. I think it was Wolfman's Got Nards over here on YouTube. Good channel. I like his stuff. But he was sliding up in our comment section just saying, hey, I think that him and someone else said Richard Brake would be a good pick. He was saying that they're just a little too old, and he doesn't think a studio would go forward with it based off of their age, because they're looking for longevity. And I think that there is definitely some merit to that, although I just don't know if really our horror characters, and maybe this is for a bigger video later down the line, I don't know if like these big franchise icons are really ever going to get those long, like, lasting horror like films again. Like I think it's mostly going to come down to trilogies, like we had with Halloween. I see that being more likely, that we get a Nightmare on Elm Street trilogy to kind of do like a swan song or a wrap up, or at least something to introduce. I just don't really know if we're going to get those 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, as we would. I would see something like a Terrifier getting that.
Yeah.
Or new people, newcomers, but I just don't know if I'm going to see the big icons do that. They seem like they have this prestige, and like they're up on a shelf, and you only want to take those toys down every once in a while, every few years, to bring some new life into them.
Yeah, and I understand about the kind of, maybe they're too old and we don't want to cast these guys. But for me, I understand that idea, but I don't necessarily believe it. because you cast Kevin Bacon in that role, and people are already protective of the Freddy Krueger character and say Robert Englund's the only one who can do it. You cast someone like Kevin Bacon who has a rapport with the horror community. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to jump on that. And I agree with you where you're saying, I don't think we're really these types of characters, Michael, Freddy, Jason, I don't think we're going to be getting how it was in the 80s where it's like, oh, we're putting together another one. Here it comes. It's not going to be how we saw with Saw, where it was just like every year we're going to do another one. I think trilogies, things like that. And I think it's going to be an actual story arc of we're doing 3 movies because we want to tell this particular story. It's not going to be just, hey, let's give Freddy another go just because. But I do believe, whether we get Robert Englund or not, Kevin Bacon or not, I think, guys like Freddy, guys like Jason have become almost universal monsters in a sense where at some point we're going to be getting several different stories where it's like, we're going to dust these guys off every 10 years and tell a different story. And that's just, they're so ingrained in pop culture now, just like the Wolfman, just like Dracula. I think, these guys are where it's going to be here in, 20 years, where it's like, we're just retelling these stories because they are so iconic.
And it's just going to take one good film with Robert Englund not in it for people to finally, I think, see that this is totally possible. And I do think it is. And you'll always have the Robert Englund portrayal. You'll always have the film. He will always be the iconic Freddy. But, it's one of those things where it's like, I definitely see that coming at some point. And I just think that, when you touch on this subject, you get a lot of pushback. And it's just because, again, we only have the remake to look at. But Jackie Earle Haley wasn't the worst part of that remake. That remake had a lot of other issues that caused that thing to fall apart. He actually did a pretty good job. So we will just have to wait and see on the Elm Street front. Hopefully with the new doc coming out, it will bring some motivation to, whoever has the rights right now. I think it's the Wes Craven estate to get a new film up and running.
Mike Flanagan.
Maybe. Yes, I was about to say maybe Mike Flanagan can get behind the camera. Yeah, it's like we think alike. We should do a YouTube channel or a podcast together,
That'd work out well for us. We'd at least get 900 subscribers.
Oh, yeah. And let's hop into our next story where we do have another legend potentially returning behind the camera. And I guess not really potentially. It looks like it's already happened.
Yeah.
But for the small screen this time with John Carpenter's Suburban Screams. It seems like John Carpenter at Texas Frightmare announced that he kind of under the radar ghost directed at least a few episodes of a new TV series. We don't have a lot of information on this at this moment in time. But his direct quote was, "I just finished directing remotely a TV series called Suburban Screams." John Carpenter's Suburban Screams, Carpenter revealed during the Texas Frightmare weekend. It was filmed in Prague, and I sat on my couch and directed it. It was awesome. And I'm just kind of impressed. I'm honestly blown away that that's what they went with and how they did this. I want to learn more about it. We don't have anything else other than the fact that the Prague Report and IndieWire also confirmed the sources that this is real. So it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, this did happen. We don't have any more information than that. We don't know what it's about. All we know is that, yes, John Carpenter sat in the director's chair remotely. So that's pretty cool. I will be getting something. His last film was in 2010 with The Ward.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how this works out. If you would have told me prior to COVID that there was a famous director coming back and he was going to be directing remotely from his living room, and they wanted me to guess, I would have 100% guessed John Carpenter because, he's one of those guys where I can see him just kicking off his shoes and directing a horror property from his living room. It just makes so much sense. And, I think we're all in the same camp of we've been, wanting John Carpenter to come back and try his hand at directing again and kind of get that maybe a couple more films under his belt because it was such a unceremonious end to it, if he never got back behind the camera again. So as soon as this popped up, it got me excited because, again, article's very lean. We don't know too much about anything that's going on with the Suburban Screams here. But I'm excited to see how this really works. I think this opens up a lot of different opportunities for directors to kind of do multiple projects and not have to travel all over. But I'm curious to see if something's lost in translation. Being on sets and being able to take in the aura of just the experience of everyone, the location as well. I'm curious to see if something's going to be lost there. I know it's kind of uh, trial and error. Plus, John Carpenter hasn't been behind the camera in a minute, so I'm curious to see what this is going to look like and what kind of opportunities this opens up, but also kind of obstacles that get in people's way.
Yeah, I'm curious as well. I have a little bit more confidence because David F. Sandberg's been very open about his work on Shazam 2. And there was the whole Gal Gadot cameo in that film. He did shoot remotely. She was in a totally different place than he was. He directed them via his computer and using an iPad and a computer, and he directed her for those scenes. And they were able to just digitally insert her there. So, it's one of those things where it's like they've come a long way. I think that the industry really had to get a little bit more tech savvy when it comes to this stuff, and I think that that's something they're going to remain weary about and trying to stay on top of, is the fact that say we have another pandemic, Lord willing, in 10, 20 years that shuts everything down again. They want to keep things moving, so they got to figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just, from my perspective, when we look at something like John Carpenter's The Thing and knowing this backstory to there and them all being on location, and it builds this camaraderie. And it's like, nowadays, as we both sit at our houses and do the Sunday Scaries and do our podcasts and things like that, we fell into a rhythm. I do think, when we had restarted this and got into it, it took us a minute to build a rapport. And that was after, a few weeks of consistently doing it. Whereas this, you might not have that chance to build a rapport, where it's like, I couldn't imagine working under John Carpenter, but never physically meeting John Carpenter. And it's a one and done scenario. So I'm curious. I mean, like, I have faith in it. I think this is definitely going to be the way to go in terms of where Hollywood is going to be directing a lot of resources, because it does open up a lot of different doors, and for a convenience factor, budgetary reasons, things like that. I'm just curious. I mean, like, either way, I'm going to be biased in terms of whatever this looks like, because it is John Carpenter getting back into horror. I can only hope it's an anthology series, but we'll see where it goes. I'm definitely very hyped for this one. I can't wait to get some more news on it.
Absolutely, and we'll definitely be covering it when it drops. But moving on to our next story here, we are talking Robert Eggers' Nosferatu remake has reportedly wrapped in Prague.
Bobby
So,
Eggs.
yes, Prague is very popular at the moment. I mean, it always is for shooting. But it is one of those things where I just thought it was funny that we had two Prague stories back to back. But this gets me very excited. Yes, they did confirm that Nosferatu had wrapped production on May 19th after a 3-month shoot. And it was also confirmed by the cinematographer Jaron Blauschek. I sorry if I butchered your name. I probably did. That it was that the film had been shot in color with looking reminiscent to 19th century romanticism. So I'm very curious to see how this is going to be in color. I did not expect that from Eggers. I figured he'd go back to kind of the style he did with The Lighthouse with this, but I think it makes sense considering it is a retelling of the story. He does want to update it, make it his own in some ways. I'm sure it's going to be very faithful in a lot of the design and everything. But yeah, I'm extremely excited for this. Obviously we've got Willem Dafoe, Bill Skarsgård, Nicholas Hoult, Emma Corrin, and Lily Rose Depp all set to star, with Bill Skarsgård reportedly playing Count Orlok or Nosferatu himself.
This one we covered, probably maybe 2 months ago, I think, on the Sunday Scaries, and we talked. It was a talking point of whether this was going to be in color or not. This one, I definitely think filming this in color and bringing it that way feels more modern. I think I fully expect Robert Eggers. This will already feel like a unique property, but I think having that color aspect will make it even more feel like its own telling of the story. So I was definitely happy to see that. I do think when this is released on a 4K, very nice version, we'll may get a black and white kind of version of this as well, just as a little extra, a little tidbit for the fans. So I definitely think we will be seeing this in black and white if you choose to eventually. I'm curious about this one just because knowing, like, looking at The Witch, The Lighthouse, all A24, and then we moved into the Northman. I know there's a little contention behind the backstory there of him having to kind of re-edit some things to please the studio a little bit. I'm curious to see, because this is Focus Features again, a Universal property. So I'm curious to see, what this looks like. If do you think the story would be a little different if this was backed by A24 as opposed to Focus Features, and to say, this is full on Robert Eggers' vision with no meddling at all? Because again, I don't know. He did black and white for The Lighthouse. The Northman, did it break even? Or I know it wasn't like necessarily a box office success. So I was just curious if he didn't have as much leeway here in terms of it being able to tell a Nosferatu story as he wanted to, because we do know what this was back in 2016. I think this was first talked about. So
yeah,
it was
with Anya Taylor-Joy and Harry Styles potentially being in the film.
I'm just curious if like this is like his true vision, or this is a more of a kind of coming to terms with a studio of, okay, we'll do this and we'll do this, but we're not getting a full Robert Eggers vision here.
Yeah. So I have that's a loaded question. I gotta say it's a lot to digest there. I would say that I know if there was some contention, I didn't know about it for the Northman. This is the first time hearing about it.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to catch you off guard there. Sorry. Robert Eggers mentioned that during tests, when they played it in the theaters, test audiences did not really favorably review the film. So the studio wanted him to kind of recut a couple things. They said it was a little too hard to understand. He's quoted, I don't have it on me right now, but he said he had to go back and recut it, and it was kind of something he was not very happy about. And he said, he'd love to do a bigger budgeted thing, but didn't know necessarily, if that would work out again because of so many masters to please, in a sense.
Understand. And for me, I think that I think he has a pretty good working relationship with A24. But I think when it comes down to it, he probably just wanted the biggest budget he could possibly get to put behind this to really execute that vision. I feel like there's probably more trust behind the camera from Focus Features now that the Northman has come out, because although not a huge success in theaters, it absolutely destroyed on digital, and it actually was one of the top movies on Peacock for a long time. It stayed up there, and it was credited with a lot of views for them. So they were very happy with that. And I think that was kind of what's pushed this over the edge and got them to back this. So, I don't know, unless we talk to the man himself, I don't know if we'll ever get that full answer on why he went with them and the others. Because you'd imagine that there might have been a bidding war for this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think at this point, this is such a passion project for him, because he has been trying to get this done for so long, that no matter how it comes out, he's going to fight tooth and nail to get final cut. And I'm sure that there's got to be something in his contract that states he gets final cut,
Yeah. And I'm curious to see what the budget on this is going to be as well. Because it does seem like a little more of a condensed story than Northman. I haven't seen it, so I can't fully comment on that. It just seemed like, especially the concept of the Northman seemed like, you can run that budget up pretty quickly just because of, the subject matter. Whereas this one seems like it could be a little more condensed. So I'm curious to see if he got even bigger budget here, or since, this is kind of a wait and see kind of game to see how audiences are going to receive Nosferatu. Either way, I'm excited. I'm glad, this is completely wrapped. We have a little bit of information. I can't wait to see what kind of modernization he's going to bring to the Nosferatu story. But, I always can't help. My mind always wanders to see, something like The Lighthouse or The Witch, which I'm huge fans of both of those films. to see if A24 was the one backing Nosferatu and what kind of story, maybe some tweaks and differences we could have expected from it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would be very curious. I'm going to probably look into that a little bit more too, see what those comments were. Cause I would really like to see if anybody was able to ever get specifics on what exactly got cut. Cause like, I guess the only thing I could understand with what you said of it being kind of hard to understand is because of that rough Viking dialect that they had in some spots.
Yes,
But
that was one of the big deals. And someone had mentioned that you needed a degree in like Nordic mythology to understand everything that's going on in the
I
film
don't,
or something.
I think that that's just, they're being hyperbolic and stupid. I love that movie. I will defend it. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I trust Robert Eggers in anything he throws at us. I mean, if you can get through The Witch without needing that, then you're good. You should be fine. So because that one I feel like is even more of a tougher watch as far as just like getting used to all of the accent and just how they speak in the dialect.
Yeah,
Like it's so set for the
yeah.
time.
But
So
the only issue becomes is that you're commenting on the re-edited version, not the original
that's
test
true.
audience.
That's
So
true. All right, Robert Eggers, I need Uncut the Northman ASAP. Make it happen. Focus
bring it to
features,
us.
don't bitch out. Let's do it. Alrighty, and moving on to our last story for the Sunday Scaries. Yes, this was the big one of the week. This is the one everybody was talking about. Terrifier 3 is officially happening and will continue to push boundaries. This was some good news. I was very happy to hear this. Not really surprised in the slightest that this, isn't happening. I was kind of surprised that it didn't happen sooner, but I think it all comes down to the fact that they wanted to negotiate for a bigger budget. They wanted to
Hmm.
negotiate for probably a lot of good deals for a lot of the people behind it. They really had to work hard on Terrifier 2 to get it to where it is. And the horror community showed up, embraced it, and then pushed it so far that even general audiences went out and gave it a shot. Not many of them liked it, but they gave it a shot nonetheless. So, yes, this is a huge win for the whole team behind Terrifier. And it's the plot is under wraps, but David Howard Thornton, of course, and Lauren Lavera are among some of the cast expected to return. I'd imagine all of them are coming back. I would not. I would have a hard time seeing anybody who could come back not coming back.
Yeah. We just talked about Nosferatu being a passion project. I mean, this one I think is a passion project between all parties involved. So I feel like anyone that is supposed to be coming back is probably itching at the chance to be in Terrifier 3. I'm excited for this one. I'm so glad that I think they haven't released any actual figures, and I doubt that they ever will. I mean, until afterward. But they said what, low seven figures, I believe. So it's like for this one, oh my gosh, what the original was like 35,000 maybe, I think, and then what do we had 250,000, and
I think it
then
was about that. Yeah.
now we're what a jump. I mean, it was a jump from Terrifier to Terrifier 2, but from Terrifier 2 to Terrifier 3 is just going to be, I'm so excited to see what kind of set pieces are involved because there's so many iconic ones in Terrifier 2 already that I can't even imagine like timesing that budget by 4 and what they can come up with, because I mean there is so much love behind this project. I'm so glad that it is continually going. I could easily see this one being that property that makes it to Terrifier 4 or even Terrifier 5 because of so much story that it seems like Damien Leone has in his back pocket here. So I can't wait to see what dynamic they bring to Terrifier 3.
Absolutely, I agree. The direct quote was from Damien himself was Terrifier 3 will be another boundary-pushing addition to the horror genre, continuing the no-holds-barred, uncompromising exploits fans of the franchise have come to expect and celebrate. Damien Leone hypes. Yes, and he does conclude that by saying, if you thought Art the Clown Reign of Terror in Part 2 was extreme, you haven't seen anything yet. So, yeah, those are big words and big shoes to fill. But if there's anybody who can do it, I think Damien can one up himself once again because, say what you will. We weren't huge on the first film, but sawing that girl down the middle, pretty intense gore. And then the bedroom scene in Terrifier 2 is one I will never forget. And yeah, I cannot wait to see what they do with that, what David Howard Thornton gets into with that. But I'm really excited to see the continuation of Sienna's story as well. I think that's honestly what I'm most excited to see, because we have a lot of questions and things that didn't get fully answered in 2 that I'm excited to see pay off. And I know
Yeah.
you're looking forward to, was it Chris Jericho?
Yes.
You're
Yes.
you're ready to watch him get cut to shit, aren't
I'm
you?
like, they better bring him back. I am in the Jericho camp, so they better have some sort of resolution with him. Maybe he'll be a main character. I don't know. But this one, they loaded so much story in Terrifier 2. What is it? 2 hours and 30 minutes or something like that, whatever the runtime was. But I mean, they really loaded that story up with a lot of different avenues they can go down. I know there are a lot of fan theories out there of what things could mean. I'm really excited to get some answers in Terrifier 3. It's, especially with that initial viewing of Terrifier, where we weren't huge fans of it and there wasn't that much of a story to tell there. And then going to Terrifier 2 and everything that they set up there. Now going to Terrifier 3, I'm excited for the gore. I'm excited for the story. I'm honestly going into this hoping not to get a full conclusion, because I need an excuse for my Terrifier 4.
Absolutely. Yep, I think Art the Clown won us over very well with part 2, and I'm real excited to see the series continue. Again, like I said, I think that the question on a lot of people's minds before Terrifier 2 came out, and then right when those early screenings and those quotes and those reviews came out, people are kind of hailing him as the next horror icon. I can say after seeing Terrifier 2 that I definitely think that there's still very much the potential. He's a small icon right now, but could find himself up there with the big boys if he has a few more sequels.
Yeah, I think he definitely is on the right trajectory to become a talking point in terms of an horror icon here in the next 10 years, probably, depending on where Terrifier goes as a property. And I'm intrigued to see what the release is going to look like here as well.
Yeah.
We had to travel a little bit to go see Terrifier 2. I'm wondering if I'm just going to go straight down the road and to be able to see Terrifier 3. I don't know. But I'm definitely excited. Whatever avenue I have to travel down to see Terrifier 3, I will be there. Because I think, this one with the budget, I can't imagine the amount of gore that's going to be involved here.
Absolutely. Hopefully they're still partnered with Screambox, so it'll be a Screambox original, and we'll get an opportunity to check it out for a review. But nonetheless, I will still go to the theater to see this and support. We talk about it all the time, that being a very fun night. So yeah, of course, I'm going to want to see this film in all its gory glory up on the screen. So
I'm right there with you.
Absolutely. But alrighty, guys, I think that's going to wrap us up for this episode of The Sunday Scaries. Lots of fun stories. We talked some Krueger. We talked some Carpenter, Eggers with Nosferatu, and of course, Terrifier 3 getting the green light. So, big news week. Yeah, right?
Carpenter,
Seriously.
Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger, Nosferatu, Robert Eggers, and Terrifier.
Little bit of something for everyone.
Wow.
But yeah, no, I was definitely very pleased with the news this week. You missed us last week because obviously it was pretty stacked up. We had a lot of videos dropped this week. We had to prep for you guys, and that still continues on. We have a lot of good stuff on the horizon. Definitely check out the channel. At this point, we do have our Boogeyman review up, like we said, as well as our review for Hollywood Dreams and Nightmares, the Robert Englund story, as well as our last episode of Splattercast officially dropped on Monday, and we talked Hollow Man. So definitely
Kevin Bacon.
check those all out. Yeah, Kevin Bacon. There's what is it? The 6 degrees. We always do this. The 3 degrees, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever.
It's somewhere around there.
Point is, there's a new Kevin Bacon video on the channel. Go click it. But yeah, other than that, I guess that about wraps us up. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.